Once more, ladies and gentlemen, good morning to all of you. That will be our distinguished guests, our colleagues, partners, citizens, and all stakeholders who have joined us today. Let me take this time to greet you. On behalf of the Future Cities Africa and the Municipal Edge, welcome to our first webinar of the 2026 mSCOA 4 webinar series. Our collaboration with National Treasury, specifically on this series, comes out of mSCOA webinars we have hosted in the past, including two we hosted in 2025 as part of our annual local government conversations. This collaboration becomes part of our 5th anniversary program as we continue to drive the conversations that make impact. On that note, Dan and Tim, thanks a lot for the past 4 years. Thanks a lot for this year and many other years to come as we continue to ensure that we contribute positively to the developments that we see today. Let's continue to be the medium that provides solutions to the modern day challenges. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Zolani and the surname is Zonyane, the moderator of this webinar and part and parcel of the team from the Municipal Edge. Our sincere appreciation go to our platinum sponsor, Business Engineering, for the continued support, Philip and team, in ensuring that we deliver these webinars at no cost to our audience. Talking about our audience, please, you made a call to earn the CPD points for investing your time on these precious webinars. Through that and through our partnership with the Chartered Institute of Government Finance Audit Risk Officers, SIGFARO has accredited these webinars. For each of the webinars that you attend, you get a maximum of 2 CPD points, which you can claim your certificate through reaching out to SIGFARO to SIGFARO via cpd@sigfaro.co.za. The email is cpd@sigfaro.co.za. And as always, our chat box is open for your insights as the audience, your contributions and the questions. But as we get to the conversations this morning, please let us know where you are joining us from this morning. As we get to our conversations, taking the lead presentation from Kgothatso Matlala, who is an economist working with local government, data management, and mSCOA within National Treasury. Kgothatso will be unpacking the role of mSCOA in evidence-based decision policy formulation. Good morning, Kgothatso, and welcome to our webinar this morning.
Good morning, Mr. Moderator, and good morning, everyone. Can you hear me? Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone, once again, and thank you, Mr. Moderator. Today's webinar focuses on how mSCOA data, when properly understood and used, can help us to move beyond compliance and actually help us or become a powerful tool or rather a powerful tool for evidence-based or evidence-informed decision-making. The outcomes or these outcomes that we have on our screen now, they will help to guide the structure of the presentation. The key message is that we already have data. In our municipalities, in our metros, our districts, we already have this information. In our small units, our IDP unit, the revenue unit, data already exists. The real opportunity now lies with how do we use this data. And we have to understand that a national data architecture defines how data must work. So by the end of this webinar, I would have liked for us to understand that we do have an architecture, and that this architecture is going to help us as local government to make decisions that are for public good. So I would like us to have that link that speaks to from data to decisions that affect our lives for the better. I want to start by grounding this discussion where it belongs, with people and services. Municipalities are responsible for delivering services that directly affect daily life. When water systems fail or sanitation is inadequate, the consequences are immediate and serious. The Constitution recognizes this, and Section 216 assigns us as the National Treasury as well as provincial treasuries with a clear oversight mandate to ensure that public finances are managed transparently and effectively. The MFMA then operationalizes this mandate by requiring municipalities to regularly report on their financial performance. But that oversight is only as strong as the quality of the data received. This is why a credible, complete, and timely municipal financial information is not only optional, but is the foundation to governance and decision making. This is the context in which mSCOA was introduced. So what is mSCOA? It is often described as a chart of accounts, but in reality, it is a structure or a data structure. It standardizes how municipal activity is described, enabling consistency across the entire local government systems. So, in essence, instead of looking at data in one dimension, mSCOA allows us to look at it in 7 dimensions, of which one is not prescribed. So there is 6 prescribed dimensions that you can look at a single data from those angles. It looks at the project segment, the function, the item, the fund, the region, as well as the costing. So this structure creates a common financial language across all municipalities and their entities. In 2014, when the minister promulgated this reform, the goal was to try and modernize how we do business in local government. Remember that goal of trying to affect service delivery, impact lives, and add value. That's where we want to go. So in 2014, we sat together as local government and we came up with these regulations. We consulted and we said we're going to make sure that we speak in a language that is global and it is universal, and where one code means one thing and one thing only. It cannot be open-ended or open to interpretation. That's that's the route that we took when we implemented mSCOA. So municipalities submit their data strings, which are encrypted formats of GUIDs. This is how it looks like. I just want a pointer. Thank you. So this is how it looks like. For the layman, it might not look like much, but for systems and technology and for governance, this is everything that we wanted. I indicated in the previous slide that instead of data being one-dimensional, it is actually 7-dimensional. The project segment speaks to, does this transaction relate to a specific project? If so, what kind of a project? Is it a capital project or an operational project? If it's neither, then it's a default project, like your opening balances. The function speaks to which function or the sub-function should the transaction be recorded against. So now we are dissecting the data that we already have and saying that the function responsible is water. So now I'll be able to record my revenue against this function and also record the transaction just to see how this function is operating or performing. Excuse me. The item segment, we are generally used to it. It speaks to the nature of the transactions that have been recorded. The funding segment was previously underutilized or overlooked, which speaks to what source of funding will be used to transact and from which source is the revenue received. So previously we'd have a big pot, we all throw our monies in that big pot and then we spend. But now we want to know and link all projects to a specific fund so that councillors can make better decisions, knowing better information. And we are all from a place. In our geography, whether it's your ward, we want to see the place that's going to benefit from this project. And that's the richness of the data that we already had. It already existed. So it was just how we now position it and restructure it so that we can make better decisions. We can see the areas that are in need or previously disadvantaged areas based on the data, based on the trends. The costing segment is again another segment that was overlooked. And I think to an extent, it is the reason why we find ourselves with infrastructure challenges that we find ourselves in, especially with regards to the water. So the costing segment talks to the impact of the transaction on secondary costing. So you remember in economics, they'll say there's no such a thing as a free lunch. I think that's why costing exists, so that we make sure that whoever who pays for it is able to know that they've paid for it and this is how much it costs them. And the last one is that standard classification, which is not regulated, which is similar to the votes. So the vote structures in national and provinces, we generally speak to we're doing a budget vote. That's the same language where the municipalities will have their own standard classification that's linked to the structure of that municipality or the makeup of the municipality. So what this information tells us is just one transaction that tells us the municipality's name, the year, and the type of information that they are submitting, whether it's a budget, is it a draft budget? We are now in March where municipalities should table their budgets by the 31st of March. So we want to know what kind of submission is this, or the system or the technology has to be able to indicate so that when the information is received into our database, we know how to manage it further. And these numbers here, these are the GUIDs that we spoke to earlier to say that globally unique identifiers. So this means one thing all around the world. So it means our municipalities are speaking a common language, and it's easy for comparability. And it's easy for us to have information or data over a longer period. So for a longitudinal analysis, we are able to just look at this one code and know that it means one thing across our municipalities and our municipal entities across the country. The shift that we are trying to make, we want to say now we've implemented mSCOA. It was promulgated in 2014 for implementation in 2017. In 2017, or rather pre-mSCOA, we were already collecting information, which was basically Excel information that municipalities would report to us as the National Treasury. Well, yes, the National Treasury. And we continued with the dual reform or reporting reforms. The pre-mSCOA as well as the mSCOA, because whenever there is a change and reform, we have to accommodate the change management to make sure that we do not disrupt the quality of the data that we are getting. So in 2019, we started publishing solely from mSCOA data. That's because from 2017, 2018, we had some teething problems. Some municipalities were still struggling with getting the data strings in the correct format. We have validation rules that we've put in place. Most of our municipalities were still failing those validation rules. But throughout the years, the quality is getting better and better. The analysis that we do, the inputs that we give to municipalities improve the quality of the data strings that they would then report to the National Treasury. So now we are making a shift. And what we are trying to say is that compliance is necessary to stabilize and standardize the system. But it is not compliance alone that that we were focusing on. So it does not improve decisions. We have to do more. So now the real reform journey is about transforming that standardized data into insights and insights into better governance. So remember, we already have the data and it's standardized now. So now we want to see what this data is telling us. And from there, we want to be able to govern better, govern our spaces better. Pre-mSCOA or before mSCOA, the data existed, but it was fragmented, it was not consistent, and often it was manually reconstructed. So that limited our ability to compare municipalities, analyze trends, and make informed decisions. mSCOA then was reintroduced as a reform to standardize and integrate how financial information is generated. From the planning side to budgeting through to reporting, we wanted to make sure that the work is essential and that it is largely focused on achieving compliance. But we wanted now to shift that mindset to say now, compliance gave us consistency and consistency gave us data. And now the opportunity is to extract that value from the data through technology. And I think you would have connected when we shown the GUID to say that this now moves beyond manual interventions or manual systems. We have to try and leverage on technology because we want to make sure that we add value and we are also efficient and effective as local government. So that's how that's how the change or the shift in our gears is geared on to say that we now want to make sure that there is better analysis of that data and that data leads us into evidence-informed decision making. With technology in the game, we have to understand that credible data is not achieved through corrections at year end. It is achieved when transactions are correctly captured at the source and supported by technology and disciplined business processes and people. So we want to create that linkages or to show that for us to get to a place that we want to go, the technology, the people, the processes, the policies, everything has to be working together in harmony. And what we are trying to say is that well-designed system controls strengthen the data completeness and improve reliability and support clear audit trials. And when we do this, or when we get this right, the technology will then enable credible data and strengthen confidence in the information used. I want to also emphasize that we have to embrace technology, and we have to embrace the opportunity that it gives us, especially in governance, such that we are able, or rather, the people are able to hold us to account. I think it's important and it's a privilege that when we are in positions of power, or positions that of improving the lives of our people, we should be having an outlet for getting feedback from the people that we represent. So we have to use this technology as a way of getting reflections or getting input back as to how we are performing. So technology allows that. And why structured and credible data matters? I think most of us, we are aware of corporate governance and all the work that has been done to date. But what is important to note is that structured data is powerful only when it is credible. If decision makers do not trust the data, they cannot rely on it, and governance suffers. We would then force our decision makers into tight places where they have to now make uninformed decisions, or they have to depend on other avenues of getting information. So mSCOA tries to address that, to make sure that we give the decision makers good quality data that they can trust. And we believe that with that data, the interventions that we are making will be beneficial and they'll add to public value. And now we've seen that we are now moving from data, or from just getting the data because we have to report, because compliance says we have to comply with the MFMA. We are moving from that to now using this data to policy decisions. This slide is important because it confirms that data is not collected for compliance alone. The latest circular that the National Treasury issued, MFMA Circular 134, particularly the part that speaks to the notable changes that we've made in the conditional grant system, is important because it makes it explicit that municipal financial data analyzed and used to inform policy and budget decisions at a national as well as the provincial level. In other words, the decisions that affect the entire local government systems are shaped by the quality of the data submitted by the municipalities themselves. So what we are trying to say is that when data is incomplete or is not reliable, the policy response risk being misdirected, delayed, and we are saying that this is why credible data is not a technical concern. It is a governance issue beyond policy and oversight. This data is increasingly used by researchers, by think tanks, by oversight bodies such as ourselves and other departments, our sister departments, far and wide use this data that municipalities would have provided or submitted to the National Treasury. And it is then used to analyze long-term trends, service delivery outcomes, and fiscal sustainability across municipalities. I'm sure the colleagues that are here this morning will remember the 3 months will not go down the line without us getting a headline or on the radio hearing that municipalities, we are failing to pay our staff, or we are failing to pay third parties, be it our pension or any, like there's some story or another about how we are managing our finances as local government. So what we want to do is to improve the
Sorry to
financial.
interrupt, KG. If you can maybe work towards wrapping up. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. I think I got too excited. Thank you so much, Mr. Moderator. But I'm almost at the end. So we want to just show that when poor data is provided to us, it then delays intervention. The National Treasury, for example, issued the budgeting regulations to all municipalities, which showed us how we need to budget. So all 257 municipalities have to use the same set of budget tables. But what we've seen is one table, for example, that looks at the policy decisions and support measures for our indigent is poorly populated. So we want to show that a practical point about the impact of data quality. So the indigent information that is reported on our table A10 in the budget schedules is used to assess the affordability, the service delivery needs, and the effectiveness of free basic services. This information informs the funding allocations, the policy choices, and support measures across local government systems. When the indigent data is inconsistent, incomplete, or not properly aligned to underlying systems, the quality of analysis is compromised. And comparisons across municipalities become unreliable, and now the early warning signals are weakened. So poor data does not mean that the underlying service delivery challenge do not exist. It means that the oversight institutions are less able to respond early and effectively. In this way, poor data directly delays intervention and undermines the governance outcomes. Budget transparency and compliance. Here we want to see how mSCOA aligned budget data supports transparency and credibility in practice. We publish aggregated municipal budget information, and that is not an end in itself. The real value now, it is enabling evidence-informed engagement with councils, with oversight structures. This should be grounded in comparable and credible data. This transparency strengthens the enforcement of the MFMA funding requirements, particularly where budgets are realistically funded. It also allows the fiscal risks to be identified earlier on, rather than after the problems have escalated. Looking ahead, we want to say what next and then what. So moving beyond compliance does not mean reducing discipline. It means using the structured data we have now more deliberately. mSCOA data needs to inform executive and council decisions, not remain confined to reporting and submission processes. To do this sustainably, municipalities and oversight institutions need to continue strengthening systems, strengthening system use and business processes. Data credibility depends on how transactions are captured, managed over time. Building analytical capability and data literacy is equally important, and we are saying that decision makers must be able to interpret information with confidence and understand what it is telling them. Finally, integrating finance, planning, and performance data is how we close that loop between money spent and the outcomes achieved. This is what the real public value of mSCOA, or this is where the real public value of mSCOA lies. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Thanks a lot for those inputs and the presentation itself, ladies and gentlemen. It also begins to share with you as the audience that mSCOA is a business reform as opposed to an understanding by many that mSCOA is a finance reform. And I believe the presentation itself has done justice to that. To share insights on what National Treasury has just presented, we've got a lineup of panelists who will be joining the conversation, starting up with Professor Nara Monkam, an associate professor of public economics. She is also the head of the Public Policy Hub and the chair in municipal finance at the University of Pretoria. Nara will explore how South Africa's local government financial data can be leveraged for research and policy analysis. And on that note, good morning and welcome, Nara.
Yes, apologies. I was talking to myself. Good morning, Zolani, and good morning to all the participants. And thank you so much for having me here today. So it's actually great that I'm coming right after Katie's presentation. And I apologize in advance because I might have to leave straight after that because we do have another workshop. So my job basically is to show how we can use mSCOA to actually leverage it for research and actually policy analysis. And following what KG said earlier. So we are all of us here. We are gathered. I think we can share. We can basically agree on one thing here, that the public resources that are entrusted to the municipality should be translated into real measurable improvement in people's life, as KG mentioned. And at the center of that responsibility lies a critical asset, which is data. So South Africa has made a bold and important investment in this regard through the introduction of mSCOA that was just presented to us earlier. So by standardizing how municipalities record and report financial information in mSCOA, it has created something quite powerful, actually, a nationally consistent, comparable, and transparable system of municipal financial data. So today, institutions across the country, from the National Treasury itself to Statistics South Africa, to the Auditor General, to provincial treasuries, and to municipalities themselves, and of course, us researchers, depend on these systems to actually monitor performance, assess service delivery, and also inform policies. So, but despite this progress, we must confront one uncomfortable truth. We are not yet fully unlocking the true value and potential of mSCOA. So, and the reason is not a lack of data, but a lack of integration, a lack of completeness, a lack of continuity and use. So the 2017 mSCOA reform, while it has been transformative, especially when you look at the experiences of other countries on the continent and even beyond the continent, it has introduced a structural break, right? So we have two versions of data. We have a version 1 that goes from 2009 to 2019, which is based on broad economic classifications. And then on version 2, which goes from 2020 to now, and of course to present, which is more details and more function-specific classifications. So these two systems, unfortunately, they don't quite speak the same language. Apologies, let me just shut down my phone here. They don't quite speak the same language. For example, like what was one a single category? Let's just take the service charges, for example. It was single category before in version 1, and now it's disaggregated into electricity, water, sanitation, and waste. So this has created a situation where us, for example, researcher, and I imagine everybody else is using this data set, must either rely on a long-term but less precise data through the V1 version, or more detailed but a shorter time series through the V2 version. But rarely have we seen people and researchers in general actually using both together. So what has been the results? The results have been a limited ability to actually analyze municipal performance over time and understand trends and to draw actually robust policy relevant conclusions. And this is precisely the gap that has motivated the collaboration between the Public Policy Hub and the chair in municipal finance at the University of Pretoria, and then the National Treasury, especially the local government database and reporting system mSCOA unit. And that collaboration has started in 2015. So through this collaboration, we have undertook a rigorous process, not only to harmonize the two data sets across accounting frameworks, but to also reconcile municipal boundary changes, to validate accounting identities, to integrate grant data as well, because we had added that to income and expenditure data that we have, and we have added capital expenditure data as well, but also audit outcomes from the Auditor General data set. And then we have constructed a more coherent, research-ready panel data set. And the result, if I may say, has been quite significant. Now we have a 15-year data set covering, spanning from 2009 to 2003, covering 257 municipalities, enabling for the first time consistent analysis of operating revenue and expenditure across major institutional reform, of course, with additional years to be incorporated as the data becomes available. And let us be clear, this is not just a data set, it's actually a platform for transformation, right? Because when this data is used effectively, right, it will allow us but also not only if it's used effectively, but also when it's strengthened through the integration of additional data sources, such as, for example, spatial data, additional spatial data sets, demographic data sets, infrastructure data sets, as well as governance information, for example. It will allow us to go further and provide more, uncover more patterns for the municipalities. For example, we can understand how municipal investment will shape employment outcomes across age, across gender, and across sector at the municipality level, just by intersecting municipal finance data with the labor market data that we see from the spatial economic activity data of South Africa, which we call CDSA data, right? It will allow us to examine how infrastructure spending improves service delivery and citizen welfare, for example. It will allow us to understand how intergovernmental transfer can actually influence fiscal discipline, but also project execution and governance outcome at the local level. It will help us understand, for example, what are the service delivery gaps at the municipality level, right? Especially when you bring in data science and machine learning and you overlay that with our municipal finance data and our socioeconomic data sets, right? It will help us understand, for example, where do we have underassessed or under-taxed properties across our municipalities, right? So that we can strengthen revenue mobilization, right? There's so much more we can uncover to help to really empower our municipality for better decision making, right? But this is not where, this is where I would like us to be very clear. This potential will not be realized, will not realize itself. It will depend on actions, right? Action on the part of municipalities, action on the part of the National Treasury, and the action on the part of all of us. From the municipality side, for example, the role of the municipality they will have to comply with reporting requirement. That's for sure, right? But the role of municipality would also be to ensure that the data that they submit is accurate, as KG was saying earlier, is complete, and is reliable. My colleague, Dr. Tendai, will actually show you what we have uncovered from the mSCOA data set, right? Because poor data does not just affect reporting, it will undermine planning, it will undermine budgeting, it will undermine service delivery ultimately. And what will be the role of the National Treasury? Of course, through the leadership of the National Treasury, it remains critical that they ensure that mSCOA evolves from a reporting frameworks into a fully integrated decision-making, decision support system, one that enables analysis, supports municipality, but also strengthen governance. And on all of us, we have to move from the idea that data is just a compliance tool, but move to an idea to the thought that data is actually a strategic asset, right? So looking ahead, what are the next step on our side? So we have done the work. It took us a year because it was a lot of work to try to consolidate those data sets, but it was valuable. It was such an interesting piece of work. Right now, and we have put together a technical note, and right now we have submitted that to the National Treasury for comment. The next step of that is actually to submit that for publication, right? Because the technical note actually documents how it has been constructed, it has been harmonized, and it has been validated. And once the technical note is published, we need to continue publishing at least a few research, a peer review research out of that data set. Right, that's a process of validation that he has to undergo before the Department of Economics at the the University of Pretoria and the National Treasury actually collaboratively now launch this data set for wider academic and policy use, which of course with embedded mechanism for continuous improvement, right? So that's basically what we will continue doing in the next step. And then, of course, we need to continue building a culture where data is used, right, consistently, intentionally, and strategically to inform decision. And this is what the Public Policy Hub at the University of Pretoria is all about. Because when we get this right, so we are not just improving data sets, we are improving how municipality actually function, how policies are designed, and then how resources are allocated. And ultimately, of course, we are improving the lives of our brothers and sisters across South Africa. So this is a call to action, right? But it's actually urgent. We need to strengthen the quality of data. We need to inform real decision making. And of course, we need to work together to unlock its full potential. And I will actually stop here. And I will actually invite my colleague, Dr. Tendai, to actually give you that flavor of what we have been able to do after bringing those two data sets together, after working for more than a year with the National Treasury, and after getting our hands dirty on that data set. Just a flavor in 10 minutes, obviously, because we don't have much of time, what the data set was able to make possible, but also what remains to be done. And I thank you very much for your time and your attention today. Thank you so much.
Much appreciated, Nara, and I know you will be exiting soon. We will continue with these conversations, especially given the solutions that you are providing. But beyond that, it further adds to my belief, which is many of our beliefs, that mSCOA is not a finance reform. And you put it correctly to say, let's move forward from compliance and reporting, which also something that Kgothatso in the presentation has touched on. Thanks for making time for us this morning.
Okay.
As we link the submission by Nara in terms of the inputs that she has made, next we're going to take Dr. Tendai Zawaira, who is a research fellow in Public Policy Hub, also in the chair in municipal finance at the University of Pretoria. Her presentation will just link, as Nara has indicated, that based on that input, what are the practicalities and experience of the University of Pretoria itself. Tendai, welcome, good morning, and over to you.
Good morning, colleagues. Thank you so much, Zolani and everybody else. I'm just going to quickly try and share. All right, thank you. So I'm just going to talk quickly to some of the insights that we've seen from our contribution in building this panel data set. And I'll just also like to take a moment to thank the National Treasury team. They've been very instrumental in us being able to come up with this data set, as Nara mentioned. So I'm just going to give you a taste of some of the things that we've come up with using that mSCOA data set. What you're seeing, colleagues, there is operating margin, which is simply a ratio that tells us how much municipalities probably have left over from their, when you compare your total operating revenue and your total operating expenses, you are seeing a ratio of how much do they have as left over after covering those operating expenses. So essentially, what I'm going to show you is things that are coming out using the different variables that we have managed to put together from the mSCOA data set. So this is typically the operating margin, and I would like to just get your attention towards that black line where we are saying that most of the black line is essentially saying there's zero operating margin. You can think of the vertical axis as percentages of leftover revenue after they've covered their expenses. So we find that quite a number. So this is by category. So we did it by the category level 2. As you can see, and we find that quite a number of our municipalities are falling below the zero line, which means their operating margins are actually in the negative. And we also have the metros, which are the A's in the blue line. They are slightly above, but somewhere between, something less than 20% operating margin that they're operating at. And our interest in this variable is that this indicator, we can use it for early warning systems, right? To identify municipalities that are probably at a risk of financial distress. Because when we think of operating margin, we're thinking of a variable or of an indicator of financial sustainability, right? Which is telling us if these municipalities are generating enough revenue to cover their operating costs. So this is just one insight that we get there. Another insight that we got was in sort of assessing on-source revenue. Particularly, we focused at property rates and service charges, which is the foundation of fiscal autonomy. And what we see on the left-hand side, on my left-hand side, which is the average property growth rates. What we notice from the data is that there seems to be a downward trend in the growth rates in property rates. And this is across all municipal categories. Over time, we see that property rates, the rate at which we are collecting this very valuable source of revenue at the local level is actually declining over time. And then we also see that there's quite a bit of volatility on the right-hand side, which is our service charges. We see there's quite a lot of volatility around service growth, service revenue growth, right? So what this picture essentially is trying to tell us a story about the structural revenue constraints, and maybe also looking at issues around administrative inefficiencies and so forth. Because, for example, if we think of the volatility we see for the service charges, we are thinking, are these real economic changes, or is this an issue around data and billing or adjustments over time? So this is just one insight that we see. And then what we also have in the data is we managed to come up with employee cost as a percentage of total operating expenditure. What we wanted to just see was just to see in terms of, because when we think of employee costs, these are typically rigid expenditures, meaning that they are difficult to adjust in the short term. So what we see is that For example, we see an upward trend in district municipalities, which is suggestive of an increasing administrative burden, or it could be around also inefficiency. And I think our interest in wanting to understand this relationship is that when we think of employee costs, there's a possibility that as they are rising, they may crowd out spending on other issues which are very critical for them, for local economic development. For example, we're thinking about infrastructure, we're thinking also about the maintenance around that, and also service delivery. So this speaks, when we look at this, this directly speaks to the spending efficiency and fiscal sustainability, particularly, and this is of interest in those municipalities that we already know that they are revenue constrained. Another item that we also explored in our data was we also got data on unauthorized, irregular, and fruitless expenditure. And what we are seeing here is also a picture. What we just did with the data is that we sort of, because this data, when we got it, it starts from 2014. Unfortunately, it doesn't match the rest of the data in our data set. It starts from 2014. But what you're seeing there, colleagues, is an evolution of irregular expenditure. So we have a map that shows us how the irregular expenditure patterns looked like in 2014. And then we also, on the other side, we see how it is looking like in 2023. And what we can see there is that in as much there's a lot of variations across time and also within the municipalities, we generally see a trend where this irregular expenditure is increasing over time. So in interpreting this graph, the darker the spots, this is essentially a heat map. So the darker the spots, the more intense or the higher the amount of irregular expenditure. So we see that, for example, when we look at across Northwest Province, Gauteng, and going into Mpumalanga, we see that there's also just this intensity or this increase in the amount of irregular expenditure between the two time points. Another element, before I just give the final, this is also, we also looked at unauthorized expenditure. Again, we also wanted to just see how it has been evolving over time. And we do see that between those two time points, there is a general increase in the amount or in the intensity of the contribution of unauthorized expenditure across the two time points. Again, we also see Free State and part of Gauteng and also some of Mpumalanga as well, showing up again as some of those areas where we see that the amount of unauthorized expenditure is also increasing over time. We also did the same analysis for fruitless expenditure, which again presents almost similar dynamics, where we see that between the two time points, 2014 and 2023, there seems to be an increase in the amount of fruitless expenditure. And again, we see that those same provinces were now thinking, and I think here we have a bit of Northern Cape also coming in. We have a bit of the Free State again is showing up. We also have a bit of Gauteng and some of Mpumalanga again, also showing up in some of those provinces where there's this general increase or rise in the amount of this kind of expenditure. And our interest in understanding these things is that, our unauthorized and irregular and fruitless expenditure is speaking to governance within our municipalities. And the picture that we see is already telling us a story in terms of how these municipalities have been operating over between 2014, from 2014 up to now. And then this informs us in terms of, it allows us for targeted governance interventions, which is also some of it, for example, if we look at unauthorized expenditure, it also speaks to how can we then work around strengthening, things like budget credibility and the fiscal planning processes, so that we see an improvement rather than this increase in intensity along the around these variables. And also when we think about fruitless expenditure, we are also worried about value for money. Where is the money being spent? Is this is it spent on projects, on things that actually deliver some value for these municipalities? And this is quite important if we are trying to improve public sector efficiency over time. We also then, as Nara mentioned, we got data on audit outcomes from the AXA. And then what we just did here was also to just give an idea of how audit outcomes have been changing over time. And we see that, so what we did is we looked at 3 time points. We looked at 2009, which is the beginning of our data set, and we also looked at 2014 and then 2023. And we see, so what we did here is that the reds are essentially looking at the unclean audit outcomes. You know, we have the clean audit where we have those qualified with no findings at all, and then everything else, you know, your disclaimers, your adverse and everything, it falls under the unclean. I think it is also clear for all of us to see that in the last you know, the period 15 years that we look at this, unclean outcomes generally dominate the landscape in terms of audit outcomes. We do see quite a number of greens. Some of them are quite sustained, and this is quite encouraging because we do see that maybe around, for example, if you see between 2009 and you look at the 2023 one, we see quite a huge improvement in you know, municipalities, some of the municipalities in Limpopo, and we see a sustained improvement around some regions in KZN, which are on the right-hand side, where there's this sustained improvement. And also at the bottom, we see some of those municipalities, you know, we're talking the Northern Cape and a part of Western Cape. But then we then see this red that is persistent across, you know, the Northwest Province, some of Free State, right? And then we also see, when we look at it, we see, for example, if you look around Free State going into Gauteng and Mpumalanga, if you compare 2014 and 2023, you see that there's been a reversal of fortunes a little bit for some of the municipality in there, which shows us that our efforts towards this, in as much as we do see some improvements, there's a bit of, you know, what's the word? You know, when we improve and then we go back. When you improve and then we go back, kind of. So this is not sustained improvement, which we would want to typically see, because the assumption is we are learning from our systems, we are adapting our systems, and we're improving how we are operating and doing things. But if we have this improvement and then we slide back and then we have another improvement, then it seems that some of those challenges are actually structural rather than temporary. And we again, it speaks to the governance and also how we can work around and think around how to make sure that this we sort of find mechanisms or means that can help us improve governance within these municipalities. And then I also want to just quickly speak to an important issue that I think both Nara and KG also mentioned. So what we also saw in the data set, what you're seeing, guys, is an issue of how complete is this data when we now look at it. So this is just a missingness kind of report that we see. And we have a few variables of interest that we sort of said, let's just see how complete these variables, or at least essentially we just want to see if municipalities are really submitting information that covers or that speaks to these variables. And we see that over time, as we see that mSCOA has been implemented, we actually see that for most of the variables, we see that the missingness, or at least the percentage at which the percentage of missing information is actually declining over time. And that is quite encouraging, because that then once we have all this complete picture of the data that we have, we can also now speak to some of those issues KG mentioned, to say if the data is available, we can do some comparisons. We can also learn from municipalities, can also learn from each other because the data is more complete. But we see one problematic area, which is our property rates. Our property rates, the missingness is just continued. So we are thinking of values around 25% of the data it's missing. So we have municipalities that are not submitting data that speaks to property revenue, property rates. And again, this is one of the most underutilized and underexplored source of revenue, which really speaks to fiscal autonomy in municipalities. So we would really want to now encourage our municipalities to say, let's submit the data so that we can have an idea of what their potential for own source revenue looks like, and we can be able to bring in more insights in terms of how can we improve on their own source revenue potential. We also have Another interesting dynamic within the data set that we saw, we actually saw quite a lot of outliers. I'm just going to go to one which has been particularly disturbing for us, which is our capital expenditure. So what you're looking at, colleagues, is the top 10 CAPA outliers, and that is not problematic. It's okay. The right-hand side is the one that is a bit worrisome for us when we analyze this, because that is speaking to negative CAPA values in the data set. And this is something that we're also just trying to understand. And I think with everybody here, as well as our colleagues from the National Treasury, this is something that we really need to be able to unpack so that we can have a good understanding of what do these negative capital expenditure values mean? Is it an issue around just incorrect recording, or is it really that we are seeing this negative capital expenditure, and what does that mean in those municipalities, particularly in terms of the infrastructure and so forth? So this is one area that we really need to explore a little bit more. And then in terms of the recommendations, as we're working the data, we actually came up with some of it. Like Nara mentioned, it was almost a year-long experience as we were putting this data
excuse me,
together.
Tendai,
And
as you get to the recommendations, if also you could be working towards wrapping up.
Yes, so this is probably the second last slide that I have. So I'm just going to quickly talk to it. I think one of the recommendations that we would like to just put out there is that we need to have metadata and a detailed dictionary around this data set. We were very lucky that we were actually able to have a conversation with the National Treasury team, the local government unit, where the people were sitting and working with this data. But you find that if it is just an ordinary researcher who's trying to work using this data, it becomes difficult because there is no clear description of what this data is, how it is collected. When you go to Municipal API, for us as researchers, we would like to be able to be, have a good understanding of how is this data collected, the variables as well, the variables description, the data dictionary as well. We now want to understand how is what each variable means. What is the full definition of this variable? So maybe this is just one recommendation or one request that we can put to National Treasury to say, even on Municipal API, for us as researchers, it will also be good if we can have this kind of information right there, so that I can be opening version 1 and I have metadata and I have a dictionary which explains this is how the data was collected, and these are the variables that you're going to expect to see, and this is what the variable capture, and this is how it is measured, or this is how it was constructed, so that we can really be able to bring out those policy insights from the data. Without a metadata and without the dictionary, you find that this limits our capability to actually analyze this data and come up with informative, evidence-based policy recommendations or responses to what is happening at the local government level. So with that, colleagues, this is the data set that we have. As Nara said, we still need to validate it, but already we are already able to see some insights, and we're already able to tell a story about what local government finances are looking like and where is it going. And already it's indicative of certain things. Some are improvements, some it's worrisome, but then again, it's good because we can actually see it over time and we can be able to talk to it and also come up with some recommendations on how we can strengthen our local governments. Thank you so much, colleagues.
Thank you so much, Tendai. And again, as you can see, colleagues, the credibility of the data itself becomes important. And more often, when we talk about this credibility or we encounter this credibility of data, we often point fingers to National Treasury. My assertion is that as municipalities, we need to start to ensure that we improve the data that we submit so that the users of the data itself are informed by the credible and reliable data. Linking to the submission by Tendai, we've got Zinzi Mphahlele. Welcome, Zinzi, and congratulations on many accolades that you continue on behalf of City of Polokwane, winning specifically in overseeing and implementing the reform itself. Zinzi is a manager in budget and reporting in the city of Polokwane. What she will be speaking about this morning, linking to the previous other presentations, is to how mSCOA data can be used practically to strengthen the executive and council oversight within municipalities. And I believe you will take it maybe beyond and make specific examples in terms of your experience with respect with the reform itself. Welcome, Zinzi. Over to you.
Good morning, Zolani, and thank you very, very much for the opportunity to be a part of this important conversation. So as Kgothatso said earlier, oversight is not optional. It is a constitutional responsibility of council and the executive to ensure that public resources are used lawfully, fairly, and in the best interest of communities. So accountability is both an obligation and a willingness to accept responsibility and to account for decisions, actions, and outcomes. mSCOA turns this obligation into a practical oversight by embedding accountability directly into the structure of municipal financial data. So how does mSCOA enable real oversight today? So I will only dwell on two segments, which are region and function segments, which together remove discretion, ambiguity, and excuses. So the region segment is oversight of where money is spent. The region segment shows exactly where municipal resources are spent by ward, area, or by community. For oversight bodies, this is critical because it exposes spatial inequalities, uneven development, and biased allocation of resources. It reveals whether spending patterns align with council-approved priorities. It makes it impossible to hide poor service delivery behind aggregated municipal totals. So oversight shifts from asking how much was spent to which ward benefited and which did not. So when councillors review expenditure by region, they can identify wards that are consistently underfunded, challenge unfair or unexplained concentration of resources. They can verify whether approved budgets are actually reaching communities. Because if spending cannot be traced to a ward, then public value cannot be proven. On the function segment, it shows who is responsible for spending and service delivery. And this is a powerful oversight instrument because it clearly identifies the department and the senior manager accountable. It eliminates blame shifting between departments. It links financial performance directly to managerial responsibility. So for council and the executive, poor performance can no longer be explained as a systemic, Poor performance can no longer be explained away as systemic. Responsibility is assigned, it's visible, and it's measurable. Consequences for underperformance become enforceable. So together, the region and the function segments shift oversight from narratives and assumptions to verifiable evidence. They make inequalities visible, they reveal unfairness in source distribution, and they clearly indicate who must account for failure or success. And when councillors can see both where money is spent and who is responsible, accountability becomes unavoidable. And in line with Kgothatso's presentation, we are moving beyond compliance to public value. So public value is not created in spreadsheets, it is created in the wards, in the region. So from an oversight perspective, spending only has value when it results in service delivery. And that is a road is repaired in a specific ward, water infrastructure is upgraded in a defined settlement, facilities is maintained where people actually live. So the region segment allows councillors and the communities to confirm whether the investments translate into visible improvements. So it can also challenge spending that produces no tangible outcomes. you can hold the executive accountable for promises made during the IDP and budget approval. So mSCOA therefore makes public value more measurable, visible, and contestable at the level where citizens experience government. As of 1 April next week, municipalities enter the public participation phase of the budget. So it shows that oversight starts before approval, not after failure. Each ward must be represented on the GUIs that are tabled in council this week, ensuring that community priorities are formally recorded. Budget allocations can later be tested against those priorities. So through the funding segment, mSCOA will enable council and communities to see how much equitable share or infrastructure grants will be received, which wards are those funds directed to, and whether allocations align with identified community needs. And this transforms public participation from a symbolic exercise into an evidence-based oversight process. Communities are no longer engaging with abstract numbers. They can see how national transfers translate into ward-level funding decisions. And when communities understand the numbers, participation becomes more meaningful and trust is built and oversight is strengthened from the ground up. So mSCOA also enables projected billing and collection by ward using the region and funding segments. And this allows municipalities, councillors, and the communities to see expected revenue per ward, projected collection levels, and which projects depend on those allocations. Because oversight becomes practical and it's shared. Communities see the link between payment and service delivery. Councillors can explain why projects are delayed or reduced. Non-payment is no longer abstract. It affects a specific ward and it will affect their specific projects as well. So when collection falls short, cash flow will deteriorate and planned projects will be delayed. Maintenance will also decline. So ward level billing and collection data turns public participation into a shared accountability conversation. It will balance rights and responsibilities. So in the past 3 years, National Treasury has made GPS coordinates mandatory on projects, and this has significantly strengthened oversight. So by linking projects to exact locations, spending can be verified on the ground, paper projects are exposed, and reporting becomes verifiable and not descriptive. So for council and communities, allocated funds must be physically visible in the ward. Projects can be monitored on site and accountability gains a physical address. And then now when money has a GPS coordinate, oversight becomes enforceable. So what we have also gathered from Kgothatso's presentation is that all mSCOA segments have accountability outcomes. So across all 7 segments, mSCOA delivers concrete oversight outcomes. There's traceability because every rand can be followed from approval to impact, as you have seen in Dr. Tendai, who leveraged on the item segment. And then from the reporting side, oversight bodies can interrogate spending by region, function, and project. And then on the transparency, citizens can see how, where, and by whom resources are used. And then on the performance monitoring, underperformance and misallocations are identifiable and actionable. So as I conclude, one message should be clear. Oversight is no longer a matter of opinion, it is a matter of evidence. mSCOA has given council, the executive, and the communities the tools to see where money is spent, who is responsible, and whether service delivery is actually happening at ward level. And of course, what matters is how deliberately we use this data, how we embrace the reform. So oversight does not happen automatically. It requires us to ask better questions, to interrogate ward-level information, and to insist that budgets approved by council translate into visible improvements where people live. The challenge before us is simple and it's also urgent: to move from compliance to consequence, and from reporting to oversight, and from spending to public value. Because as Professor Nara has said, data credibility is key. And when data is credible, oversight becomes meaningful, decisions become defensible, and public confidence is restored. Thank you very much, Zolani.
That's much appreciated. We always value your contributions, and we believe in our next 3 mSCOA webinars, we will have people like you just to continue empowering broadly, not only the officials within the public service, we've got normal citizens, we've got councillors, civil society organizations, you've seen academia in terms of the presentations that we took earlier. And as I transition into my next panelist, there are 2 comments and questions for you, Tendai, as will be coming through later in terms of what is coming from the audience, which came from Councillor Hendrikas. It related to your slide number 4 in terms of the source, linking to that, which you must also prepare. I do understand what you meant by clean or unclean audit, but then there was a question that came, if you can also at that point just allude to that. To my panelists, there's quite a number of questions and comments that are coming through, which I will urge you to look at so that as you get the next opportunity to engage with our audience, you can also start to deal with those particular questions and comments. As we move forward, welcoming Philip de Bruin, the Managing Director in Business Engineering. Philip, we just want you to examine and share with us the critical roles of systems, technology in driving and sustaining the implementation of the mSCOA reform itself. As you do so, it will also be great because the issue of data integrity, data credibility, it's coming strongly. Also your insights and perhaps what is it that municipalities must do better, because it's not like they're doing nothing, but there is a lot of improvement in ensuring that we've got the data that is reliable. Welcome, Philip, and over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Zolani, and thank you very much for the opportunity. I think if we look at the transformations as was discussed this morning, it's really been a landslide approach. And well, good luck to Treasury, and well done for I think what they've achieved in a fairly short period of time. Remember, we changed what we were used to for a very long time to a completely new transformative environment, and really at the heart of this was the standardization of the municipal standard chart of accounts, or the mSCOA environment. You cannot really play in the mSCOA environment or claim to understand it without systems or technology. What the mSCOA environment has introduced is the multifaceted approach to our environment. In earlier years, we used to have separate billing systems. The SEM data was outside of the core system. Assets and payroll were disconnected from the environment, and we had lots of silos within the space. With the advent of mSCOA, it forced compliance with regards to a singular data model with one classification structure. Now, from a systems vendor perspective, it has been traumatic because all of us in the space had to really reinvent the way that we were committing our software. 2016 saw the introduction of the first RT agreement, but the prelude to that agreement was really a long process of getting suppliers to understand exactly what was envisaged with the new chart of accounts. And the objective from the beginning was to move to the single version of the truth. And that's really where we're at today. Now, there's the issue with regards to compliance of systems, and I'm nearly 100% convinced that we don't have uncompliant systems in local government with regards to the ERP environment. I think both systems are compliant, and I think we've just concluded a series, nearly 18 months, 2 years of intense workshop sessions with National Treasury on the new ICF environment, which is going to induce better controls, more transparency, but it's going to also force systems providers to again relook at the core of how we are doing things. So I think if you're in a municipality and you use a financial system, it should present a form of mSCOA compliance. Yes, there might be certain instances where you feel it's lacking, and there might be certain instances where it's excelling. I think it's more a situation of familiarity. So if I know how to use Word, for instance, to type a letter, it's very difficult to now tomorrow start using WordPerfect. It's word processor, it's the same product, it's just that the rules are different and the way that you interact with the product is different. So, but compliance is critical, because there's no way to hide anymore. KG this morning mentioned the GUIT and the strings. Now, those things happen and execute automatically out of the system. So if the system is not computing the way it should across all the segments, through all the dimensions, then the strings will be wrong. And as a systems vendor, we have this measuring dashboard from Treasury. Most municipalities will understand what I'm saying. And if the strings are green, everything's good. If the strings are not green, there's chaos and mayhem. Okay? I don't know, it's a sense of humor, but Treasury always keeps us on our toes, because just when you think that you've got everything under control, and yes, we are now cooking, they change the chart version. Yeah, some instances we then have to sort of go back to where we were earlier and reinvent ourselves. But one of the other important things is that I think that we have to be mindful of is that, especially from a customer perspective in a municipality, is that loose standing systems are becoming more difficult to present in an integrated environment. Now, if you speak to your ERP systems or your financial systems provider, you'll understand what I'm saying, because the way that asset management has been incorporated into the new reporting structure virtually makes it impossible to run that in a spreadsheet. You absolutely have to have it in a structured system. If you don't have that, your reporting again will suffer. So there's a huge change in the way that we approach, just for instance, asset management. Payroll systems used to be able to function and live outside of the ERP system or the financial system, but that's also becoming near impossible. It's really becoming very difficult, again, because of the integration and the reporting of data. Sure, web services and APIs provide us with a stopgap, but it cannot be a longer term solution. Our issue is with the management of integrated data. I just quickly want to end off with the governance and control, and I think what's important is to recognize the oversight of National Treasury and also the Auditor General. And with the technology that we're discussing and the benefits is the provisioning of full audit trails, who, what, when, why, automated approvals of workflows, role-based access controls, and the segregation of duties. I imagine you're coming up, Zolani, to say that it's enough now. No? Okay, good. So just to finish off then is if we look at the let's call it manual environment of the past. So miscalculation, duplication errors, incomplete records, those were typically the things that we struggled with. And with the incorporation of the mSCOA methodologies and the processes in our new approach of managing this environment, we have validation at source. So you cannot enter a wrong transaction into the system because it has to report across all the segments. So you start it right or you don't start it at all. There are mandatory fields and structured inputs that are regulated. So there are certain things that everybody has to do, and it's no longer optional. Now, if you roll this up, again, just getting to the oversight of Treasury and the Auditor General, it just makes it easier. We saw the charts that was displayed earlier. and you can sort of have a bird's eye view on the country of progress made. Now we've got, I think it was 2003, 2014, 2023 areas, but the reality is that as soon as those strings are submitted, the data is available. So as soon as your strings are green, the way that they should be, your data is available and can be used nationally. That in itself is a huge improvement, because for Treasury, for any government department to have gotten information out of local government in the past was a huge exercise. I'm old enough to, or young enough to remember that you had an instruction issued by Treasury, or by your provincial Treasury, or by your provincial department, or by your district municipality. Send us a fax, answer these questions. The faxes has to be here by 4 o'clock. 4 o'clock, the faxes arrive. Tomorrow morning, somebody sits, goes through all the information. That information gets to where it needs to be, maybe a week or 2 weeks later, or never. When we do this mSCOA thing properly, we'll be able to actually report in a near real-time environment. And if that is the objective, or if it's a benefit, that would probably be the best benefit. This project-based budgeting, the alignment of fundings, the multi-year planning, those types of things are also salient benefits, but they cannot happen outside of a structured system. You can try and do it in Excel. It's just too cumbersome. This morning early on the first presentation that KG did, the A schedules, if you just go and look at the detailed information in the A schedules, and the facets that it reports to actually create, and I'm not just talking about one specific report, look at all the reports in those A schedules. It is virtually impossible for a single person or multiple persons to get that information right the first time without a proper system. And that's why we have standardized. We've had a lot of municipal system, financial system providers in the past, and in the last 10 years that's shaken out. I mean, we've got a handful left, which is good and bad, but still, it's just that I think the guys that are still around, as I said earlier, it's really not a situation of a non-compliant system. It's probably just, everybody will get there sort of more or less the same time. And to ensure data integrity and reliance on the data and the single truth of the information, from a National Treasury perspective, they have regular audits, and they really keep the service providers on their toes to ensure that the interaction is transparent and that the data is solid and clear. And I think with that, I'd like to conclude. Thank you so much, Zolani. Thank you, everyone.
Much appreciated, Philip. Once more to my panelists, please check the comments, the questions that have come through, because looking at the time, we might not be able to get to the actual Q&A session, but as you will be preparing your conclusions, your last insights, it will be a pleasure if you touch on some of those comments and questions for the benefit of our audience. As we get further to our program, and the next panelist is the last panelist in this segment, which is Malibongwe Mhemhe, who is with Statistics South Africa. Malibongwe is a director of local government institutions within Stats SA, and he'll be sharing with us this morning how Stats SA intends to use the mSCOA data and present the findings of their data validation work that has been conducted for this purpose. Let me welcome you, and please take over. The next 5 to 10 minutes is on you. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, good Zolani, and good morning to fellow panelists and attendees. As Stats SA, we are deeply appreciative of the opportunity for us to collaborate in this a digital space. Let me upload then my presentation. from local government institutions. We are a directorate within States SA, Government Financial Statistics Chief Directorate, that is responsible for non-financial and financial data. I'm not sure why it doesn't want to be on slide mode, but I will try to continue. In LGI, we publish 4 quarterly publications and 3 annual publications based on municipal data. We send questionnaires to the municipalities and we get our information based on those questionnaires. For some of our annuals, we are able to verify the data provided to us using the annual financial statements of the municipalities, or mostly of which are audited. And for the quarterlies, we get the trial balances and some of the income and expenditure reports from the municipalities, just to check if the data on the questionnaire at least talks to what is actually happening in the municipalities. Then we are doing all of this for South African Reserve Bank, our national accounts within States SA, where they compile the GDP. They need our data, both I think operational and capital information. Then our financial products are mainly on revenue, expenses, and the capex of municipalities. And the revenue information, revenue and expenditure information is classified functionally, where now we look at the departments or votes within municipalities, like your water, your electricity, health, planning and development, and other votes that are there in the municipalities, and also the economic classification in terms of what goes to compensation of employees, what goes to goods and services, which is your fuel that is used, your what is it called, this S&T that is claimed by the employees in the municipalities, and all the other general expenses. That is the economic classification, and our data is published at municipal level. For the non-financial, we look at the 4 variables: water, electricity, sewerage and sanitation, as well as the solid waste. We also look at the workforce, those that are working in the municipality, and we collect data on indigent households. Then just an overview, also the innovation. Now there is this cry from the municipalities that say which we have taken into consideration, because municipalities are crying, saying that we are giving this information to National Treasury. Then why don't you get it from there and then do your statistics based on what we are giving to National Treasury? So what we do, then we I think we agreed to say we will do that. But before we do that, we thought that it is fair that we must test what is on the database, so that our movement is well informed based on the actual findings on the data versus our own data. So we have done the pilot for revenue and expenditure on a quarterly basis on the data that is uploaded on the National Treasury, which is in the format of the trial balances that we are receiving. And as you will see in the next slides, on that one, we are comfortable with the data. And we will, I think, from the next financial year of the municipalities, we will no longer send the questionnaires, but we will extract our data from the GoMuni website. Then for the balance sheet, we are still testing. We have done a feasibility study on the metros and the secondary cities, top 19. And at the moment, we did not get much of what we expected. The comparisons are not closer to each other at the moment, and we are working with Treasury on trying to identify maybe as to where is or what is the problem regarding to that. But we will be extending that feasibility now to all the 257 municipalities, just to test now the quarterly balance sheet that is uploaded on the municipalities, and then we will make a decision in the next financial year of the organization of Stats SA before March or April 2027. We will be having now the full findings on the balance sheet. Then on the other side, we have tested the quarterly data, revenue and expenses, operational revenue and expenses, and we have tested them, and we are happy, and we requested now some of the data sets from Treasury for all the 130. Let me mention that the quarterly is inclusive, is only doing the 130, inclusive of all the metros and inclusive of all the secondary cities, but some selected locals and districts. But that the reason why we cut our scope was because of the resources that we were struggling to get some financial resources from Treasury. Now as an organization, not necessarily as a unit. But now there is a promise, I must mention, that we might go back to the 257 because now the data is available on National Treasury Local Government Database. So we are automating that data instead of now manually converting each and every trial balance or income and expenditure report from the municipalities. We're going to make use of our business modernization unit so that they can automate that data for us, and it will be a matter of a click, and then the reports are produced. Then we have done the non-financial census review, where now we look at the service delivery information and indigents, as well as the workforce in the municipalities, as I had mentioned earlier. And we looked at the A schedule, as well as A10 schedule of the Treasury data. And then again, for the A schedule and A10 schedule, it is really not really giving us what we expect when we compare to what we have received from the municipalities. Then the recommendations, which is sort of my last slide, but I will touch base on some since I have a couple of minutes. The recommendation, as I have indicated, we will stop sending questionnaires for financial and the quarterly financial statistics, but we will get the data from the municipality, from the National Treasury database, and produce the publications that we were producing. So we will just change direction. Instead of going to the municipality, we will go to Treasury. So especially for the income and expenditure of the financial census, but the balance sheet, we will get it from the annual financial statements, which are also deposited on the repository in the National Treasury. Then by doing that, I think we will be reducing the respondent burden. As I had mentioned, that there has been complaint, especially by some of the municipalities who are already up to date and are aware of what is happening. So they said they are the ones who referred us to Treasury, and we tested the data, as I had mentioned. And but for financial, I think as a financial census for the balance sheet strictly, as well as the capital expenditures, I think we will do our exploration, our further exploration on the data, so that we are fully satisfied that it can serve the purpose, as well as to our non-financial. I think we will work together with Treasury on the non-financial, and I think there is another meeting that I will be attending on Circular 88 reporting. It's at 12 today, where they are also trying to get the data from the municipalities, Treasury and Kgothatso. It's the non-financial data. We hope that that information will be credible, and then it can be of use to us as Stats SA. Okay, yeah, these are just the findings from our releases. These are the values that we collect on a quarterly basis. It's the more operational in nature. We don't do capex and the balance sheet on a quarterly basis.
Malibongwe.
The decision to do it will be endorsed by the findings of the pilot that we are currently doing.
Thank you very much.
Okay,
I
Zolani,
think
I'm
let's hold
wrapping
it
up.
here. No, I'm looking at the
Yeah.
time.
I
If
think
you may.
the participants will see the findings. I don't have to go through them. I have stressed already what I wanted to stress, how State SA is intending to make use of the database, or mainly from the mSCOA. So yeah, the rest I think you will see it. It's just some samples of our publications that
Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Malibongwe. That's much appreciated. And again, to those of you who are still with us, 110 of us, you can see the importance and the value of the data that various institutions continue to draw from mSCOA. And it goes back to an earlier comment and request to say, from the side of municipalities, it then becomes very important not only to comply, but ensuring that we've got data that can be used for various purposes in building the country that we live in. As you might see, and again, thanks Dan and team, that these webinars do have an instant impact, looking at some of the comments that are coming through from the audience, which is really what we always strive for in terms of ensuring that we don't only have just the conversations, but we empower, we bring new information for the participants to be able to live these webinars, better citizens of South Africa. As I've requested to my panelists, in terms of the comments and questions that came, as you will be wrapping up, also please try to answer some of those comments and questions without really me going through them, looking at the time. But let me assure our audience, this is the first mSCOA webinar this year. As I've indicated, we've got 3 more coming, where we will create a space for you to engage with your questions, your comments in terms of what you want to draw from the audio, from the panel itself. There is one that I really want to tackle before I hand over to each of the panelists, which basically seek an advice to a municipality that is progressing well with system implementation. That will be mSCOA implementation, but low adoption rate. What is often the problem there, and it's something that municipalities really need to take attention of. At the very beginning of the implementation of the reform, there was a specific communication for municipalities to establish governance structures that will then oversee the implementation of the mSCOA. One of the purposes of that particular structure was to ensure that every department, every official, every governance structure within municipalities, they become part and parcel of the implementation. But for one reason or the other, for some municipalities, the structures were established, the reform came in, the structures just collapsed, and that's one of the reasons that you will see the slow rate. That's one of the reasons you will see that in some municipalities, the reform itself has been isolated to the finance function, with other functions not really contributing to the implementation of the reform itself. It's more going back to those basics, look at what could be done better in building the structures that must support the implementation of the reform itself. Ladies and gentlemen, as we get closer to concluding our webinar this morning, I will invite my panelists, starting from Kgothatso, just to first share your insights and reflections coming out of this webinar, but most importantly, the continuous role that National Treasury continues to play, judging from the presentation of Malibongwe as well, in also changing how they collect the data, moving away from engaging with municipalities but relying on the mSCOA reform as a data source for the statistics by Statistics South Africa. KG, let me welcome you back for your closing remarks.
Thank you so much, Mr. Moderator. I welcome the inputs and the insights from my fellow panelists, and sorry about that. Thank you. And I just wanted to indicate that at its core, governance is about making decisions in a transparent and accountable way. And good governance depends more on just the rules and oversight structures. It depends on whether institutions actually have the systems, the processes, the people, as well as the data to support those decisions. And in local government finances, mSCOA is the institutional framework that makes evidence-informed governance possible. And then that structures of financial management information. It structures financial management information so that it is consistent, that it is comparable, and that it is credible across municipalities. And I would like to make it known to the attendees this morning that government continues to speak. We are in conversation with different departments because we all want what is best for us. We are about creating that value. We want to make sure that we change the lives of South Africans. We want to move beyond negativity on bad financial management on our side as the National Treasury. And Malibongwe is also interested in making sure that we have good data that helps us as Statistics South Africa to inform policy. Zinzi also is making sure that there is service delivery in Polokwane municipality. So we are really working hand in hand. We are trying to push as much information as possible out there, especially for the citizens, because it is important that everybody holds us accountable, and want to make sure that there is no longer secrecy. We don't hide behind the veil of secrecy so that people can hold us to account. And we will be sharing the presentations. There's links of where you can access data. I also just shared information of a link on my Mzansi Exchange, which is the work that we are collaborating with the presidency on driving the digitization agenda for South Africa. And it's interesting, and I would ask that we all play our part in making sure that there is public value for the people of South Africa. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much for that, Kgothatso. And again, as I've indicated, and perhaps I'll say a challenge to National Treasury as we plan for the next 3 webinars. And I'm glad we've got also the colleagues from National Treasury having joined us to also start looking at some of the questions that have come through from this webinar, which we could not deal with, so that we can then help shape our future conversation. Tendai, as we conclude, and there were some few comments and questions that I had directed you to actually, as panelists, to look at your experience given the webinar of today, and perhaps touching on few of those questions and clarities. Kindly share with us your insights as you conclude.
Yes, thanks, Zolani, and thanks to everybody who's presented here today. I just wanted to say that first and foremost, to address the 2 questions, I think I saw 2 specific questions. The first one was about Section 71 and how it links with the operating. Please say
we keep losing you. I'm not sure that it's on my side. But
it was one of our way of applying the data. So that operating margin is actually an operating revenue minus total operating. Can you hear me now, Zolani? Hello?
Yes, we can, but you keep fading.
I'm sorry, my network is patchy. I will really try to just go quickly with it. So the question on operating margin, that was our application. We're now trying to apply that data. Like I said, it's a ratio that we say total operating revenue minus total operating cost as a proportion of total operating revenue, just to see after you, how well can your total operating revenue cover your operating cost. So that is we will not typically find it on the API. It is a ratio that we calculated using the data from API. And then the other question was on audit outcomes. So what we did there, the clean versus the unclean. So what we did there was to simply take you know, the what is it called, those categories for the audit outcomes, the adverse, the disclaimer, the unclean with unqualified with findings, and so forth. So anything else that had some sort of finding, it falls into the unclean side of things. And then the ones that were
Tendai, the network is really disadvantaging us.
The ones that we have as clean audit. So it was just our way of just creating a dummy to show the ones that are just clean compared to the ones that have got issues. I am truly sorry. I'm to say is that I saw from the States SA's presentation that it seems as if we are of the same mind. We have the same mindset in trying to use this municipal finance data, because some of the research that we want to do speaks to employment outcomes, it speaks to service delivery, which are issues around which already States SA is also trying to showcase, using how do we see the finances, the way they are collected and the way they are used. How does that speak to the broader development outcomes in these local municipalities? So I really just want to implore again, I think Nara also mentioned this, we're sort of working in silos, and I would really like to just say, maybe we can all come together and sit down and we see that we can put our resources in sort of, we have the common goal, and instead of replicating some of this work, we can actually be working, you know, this policy-driven insights. By that, I would like to say to Malibongwe, I think the PPH team will be coming and knocking at your door, because we think we are also quite aligned in terms of what we would want to be able to use the mSCOA data, you know, the municipal finance data. But thank you so much, colleagues.
We are also proud as this medium that more often we also create a platform even for our panelists to connect, as Tendai has indicated just now. Zinzi, let me allow you to come in. There were also some few comments and questions which I believe, as part of your closing remark, you will be able to touch on. Welcome back, and over to you.
Thank you so much. As I've already said, we all have a role to play in ensuring accountability in our municipality is enhanced. This starts with us asking our councillors questions about decisions, projects, and spending that affect our wards. So it's not just about being curious, it's about demanding transparency and fairness. So National Treasury has got platforms like Vulega Imali, Municipal Money, and recently they've added the Go Muni portal, which is a powerful tool in this process, because through it, residents can access information on budgets, spending patterns, project progress, and service delivery performance. And by using this portal, we can see how resources are allocated across all wards and monitor whether funds are being used as intended and identify gaps and inefficiencies. And being informed empowers us to participate actively in municipal oversight, because when we are engaging as communities, councillors and officials are reminded that every decision has a direct impact on real people, and that every ward matters equally. And ultimately, accountability is not only the responsibility of officials, it is a shared responsibility. And by asking those hard questions, monitoring spending, and using those tools like GoMuni, we ensure that municipal resources are used wisely and services are delivered effectively, and no ward is left behind. Thank you very much.
Thank you for those insightful closing remarks. And after everything has been said and done. Philip, what are your closing insights and remarks based on this conversation today?
Yeah, it was very, very insightful. It's very exciting. Just to get to the questions, Mphahlele asked a question about integration, and I think Kgothatso answered it very, very well with the reference to the Zinzi site. I'd also like to encourage as many people as possible to visit the site and to just acquaint yourselves with the digitization processes that are afoot in the country. And there's a question from Nomsa with regards to do all municipalities use the same processes? Yes. So whether you're a small municipality in a rural area, whether you're metro, same processes apply, same reporting structures apply to all of you, or to all the municipalities. With regards to integration, I also think that's something that is coming with the new regulations that will be promulgated in time to come. But in essence, mSCOA requires a full alignment across your financial systems, your operational systems, planning and budgeting tools. So, as I said earlier, technology needs to integrate all municipal functions into a single ecosystem. Charts and spreadsheets and paper reports are a thing of the past. We're very excited about data integrity, system control, and financial transparency that will be brought about by the implementation of mSCOA compliant financial systems. Thank you very much, Zolani, and thank you very much for the opportunity.
And we hope to see you again in future. Your parting shot, Malibongwe, should just maybe be the response to Tendai in terms of the request that she just made as you conclude. Let's take you, and then we will be making the concluding remarks on my side. Over to you.
Thank you, Zolani. Yeah, no, we were also impressed by Tendai's presentation because it talks to what we are doing and what we can also do even for our products, just to make them attractive to the public out there. So they are welcome. We want that collaboration. We'll be waiting for their knock, and we will open the doors for them. One other thing that has been already indicated by other speakers is the issue of institutional parity, especially for non-financial reporting, because the finances, as we can see, they are of good quality to a certain extent, but the non-financial data is the one that needs, I think, more attention from all the relevant departments, States SA, National Treasury, SALCA, COGTA, Department of Water and Sanitation, and others as well. If they can come together in ensuring that municipalities are providing the more correct information, and that maybe besides mSCOA, they also have their own repository of data, because for instance, if we can send one questionnaire of the non-financial nature to 3 people in different departments in the municipalities, you don't necessarily get one information, even though the institution is one. You may get 3 different answers about the same municipalities, of which now you ask yourself which one is credible and correct and actionable, for instance.
Thank you, Mali. Let's hold it there, looking at the time. Ladies and gentlemen, starting with my panelists, thank you very much for making this time, delivering this empowering webinar. As I've indicated earlier, from our audience, you can see the immediate impact that your inputs and contributions have made today. We do hope that we will continue with these impactful conversations in trying to change the status, not only in our municipalities, but broadly in our society. Dan and Tim from Future Cities Africa and the Municipal Edge, thanks for your efforts. We could not have come this far to this 5th year if it was not for the teamwork, collaboration, the understanding, because we push each other at times solely for the purpose of delivering these webinars. And of course, to National Treasury for this collaboration, which we hope it's a start of many other conversations of this nature that then begin to empower, as I've indicated, not only those within public service, but broadly the society, various stakeholders. You have seen the impact of this webinar today, the insights that have come through that have been acknowledged, and of course Business Engineering, our platinum sponsor for the series. We value your contribution, Philip, in ensuring that we keep going, and of course our partners and supporters in SIGPARO, SALGA, we've got ILGM, we've got the Institute of the Municipal Personnel Management of South Africa, and lastly, we've got the Center for Municipal Asset Management. Let's continue with these collaborations, these partnerships. Your contributions, your inputs will not go unnoticed. On this note, ladies and gentlemen, be in the lookout for our future webinars. We've got 2 coming up in April. We've got more, as I've indicated, for mSCOA that are coming up during the course of this year. We do hope that we will see you and still take your contributions. From our side, it's a wrap and goodbye. Enjoy what's left of today.